Hello! Welcome to English for Shared. Here, you learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's go!
The Mystery of Dyatlov Pass. In the winter of 1959, 9 young Soviet adventurers set out on an expedition to the Ural Mountains, full of courage, energy, and confidence in their mountaineering experience. The group, led by Igor Dyatlov, had a clear objective: to cross a remote region known as the Otorten Pass, a hostile yet challenging place for those seeking exploration and self-improvement. What was supposed to be just another journey of endurance and conquest, however, turned into one of the greatest enigmas of the 20th century. Days later, when they didn't return on schedule, rescue teams were dispatched, and what they found was disturbing. A tent ripped open, bodies scattered across the snow, and circumstances that made no sense at all. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened that freezing night. The case, known as Mystery of Dyatlov Pass, blends elements of panic, unexplained injuries, and contradictory clues. More than 6 decades later, it continues to intrigue scientists, researchers, and curious people around the world, remaining a story in which fear, nature, and the unknown intertwine in terrifying ways. Preparations and start of the expedition. The group was made up of 9 students from Ural Polytechnic University, all experienced in trekking, climbing, and survival in extreme conditions. They were young, ambitious, and passionate about adventure, dreaming of conquering the Otorten Pass, a remote location virtually untouched by climbers at the time. Each member had a specific role. Some were responsible for route planning, others for supplies, and all shared the responsibility of monitoring the group's safety. Before departure, the students spent days preparing. Maps were studied, routes planned, and equipment meticulously checked. They carried snow-resistant tents, supplies, heavy winter clothing, and even radios to maintain contact with their base city. The feeling was one of confidence. They had training, experience, and team spirit, and nothing seemed to indicate that anything could go wrong. On the morning of January 27th, 1959, the group left the town of Ivdel with great enthusiasm. There was laughter, photos, and an atmosphere of adventure. The snow covered the mountains like an immaculate blanket, and the intense cold didn't seem to faze them. They felt prepared to face the harsh Ural winter and eager to capture every moment of their journey. As they progressed through the remote region, the students maintained radio contact with local authorities. The transmitted messages indicated that everything was going according to plan. The journey required intense physical exertion, but the group was well equipped and in excellent shape. The excitement and camaraderie were palpable, and each step seemed to bring them closer to the achievement and academic fame that this expedition could bring. However, as they approached the pass, the first signs of difficulty appeared. The terrain became more rugged and the weather conditions more severe, with biting winds and soft snow making progress difficult. But the young men showed no fear. They pressed on confidently, believing that experience and preparation would keep them safe. Little did they know that freezing night was about to transform their adventure into a terrifying mystery. The tent found torn. When the group failed to return on schedule, local authorities and family members became concerned. A rescue team was organized to travel the planned route and search for signs of the students. After a few days, the first shocking discovery was made. The tent was structurally intact, but torn inside, as if it had been hastily opened from the inside. What intrigued investigators was the fact that, when fleeing the tent, the students left behind clothes, shoes, and essential equipment. Some left wearing only socks, others without coats or gloves. This indicated a sudden and irrational panic, something completely unexpected in a group trained for extreme situations. The haste and desperation were evident, but the motive remained unknown. Around the tent, footprints in the snow showed that the young people had dispersed in different directions. Some headed for flatter areas, others for regions with deep, cold snow. The tracks indicated that even in panic, they were trying to find shelter or protect themselves from something that had frightened them. It was clear that something unusual had happened inside the tent that night. Investigators also noted signs that the tent hadn't simply been opened carelessly. The tear appeared deliberate, made from the inside out. This suggested the young men were in an extreme hurry, but there was no convincing explanation for their desperation. The exact nature of the event that led them to abandon the tent remained unknown, adding to the mystery surrounding the case. The scene of the torn tent became the first great enigma of the Dyatlov expedition. Every detail, the clothing left behind, the scattered footprints, the tent's very tear, seemed to contradict the young climber's experience and common sense. It was the beginning of a horror and mystery that would span decades, leaving unanswered questions about what could have caused such panic on that freezing night. Discovery of the bodies. In the days following the tent's discovery, rescuers began locating the group's bodies, and each new discovery deepened the mystery. 2 of the students were found near the tent, covered in snow, apparently dead from hypothermia, without serious injuries. The position of the bodies suggested they had succumbed to the cold, trying to protect themselves. But something seemed out of the ordinary. Why hadn't they tried to return to the tent? Further on, the remaining bodies were found hundreds of meters away, scattered irregularly across the terrain. Some were lying strangely, as if they had fallen or been thrown, while others appeared to have tried to hide. Some people's clothes were torn, and personal items, such as shoes, had been abandoned. It was clear that the group had lost all organization and control of the situation that night. 3 of the bodies had serious injuries, including broken bones and internal contusions, comparable to high-energy accident trauma, but with no signs of corresponding external impact. One body had its tongue ripped out, and another showed facial and head injuries that appeared inconsistent with falls or extreme cold. These anomalies baffled investigators, who could not explain how such injuries could have occurred without signs of a struggle or external violence. In addition, some bodies presented traces of radiation on your clothes, albeit at low levels, enough to raise suspicions of exposure to some unknown agent. No evidence pointed to attacks by animals or other humans, which made the situation even more enigmatic. Every detail seemed to contradict the group's experience and the logic of survival in extreme conditions. The discovery of scattered bodies with unexplained injuries and signs of panic transformed the Dyatlov expedition into a high-profile case. The combination of deaths from hypothermia, severe injuries, and the scattering of bodies left investigators, family members, and historians perplexed, creating one of the most disturbing mysteries in modern history. Initial investigation. The Soviet government launched a formal investigation, but the results were inconclusive. Official investigators concluded that the students died from an unknown force of nature, but this explanation didn't explain the strangest details of the case: the torn tent, the scattered bodies, the severe injuries, and the presence of radiation. Everything seemed to point to something out of the ordinary. During the investigation, mountaineering experts and doctors examined the bodies, trying to understand the trauma and injuries. No conventional theory seemed to fully explain the broken bones and internal bruises, without corresponding external marks. Medicine and science at the time could not determine whether the injuries were caused by a natural phenomenon, an accident, or human intervention. Weather conditions were also analyzed. On the night of the disappearance, strong winds, extreme cold, and heavy snow made visibility and movement difficult. However, no reports indicated a significant avalanche or extreme weather event sufficient to justify the desperate escape from the tent. Everything pointed to the young people possibly having become disoriented, but this still didn't explain the severe physical trauma. The presence of radiation in some bodies, the mystery deepened. Theories about secret military tests or nuclear accidents began to circulate, but there was no concrete evidence. The Dyatlov case quickly gained international notoriety, with journalists, researchers, and curious people trying to understand how such a prepared and experienced group could succumb in such a tragic and mysterious way. In the end, the official investigation left more questions than answers. The combination of unexplained injuries, irrational behavior, and seemingly unexplained phenomena made Dyatlov Pass one of the most intriguing enigmas of the 20th century. To this day, historians, scientists, and enthusiasts continue to debate what really happened that winter night, without a definitive answer. Theories about what happened. Over the years, countless theories have emerged trying to explain what happened on that freezing night. The first and most debated is avalanche theory. Some researchers believe the students sensed the threat of an avalanche and fled the tent in haste. However, experts argue that the steepness of the terrain and the position of the tent do not fully justify the group's panic, or do they explain the severe injuries suffered by some of the bodies. Another explanation considered was the extreme cold and hypothermia. Prolonged exposure to temperatures below -30 degrees Celsius could have caused irrational behavior syndrome, causing the young people to leave the tent disoriented. This theory helps explain the escape without proper clothing, but it fails to explain the internal physical trauma and radiation detected in some of the clothing. Some researchers have raised the possibility that secret military tests or weapons experiments due to the radiation found. The region was remote and known for military activity, which fueled suspicions that something unknown might have occurred, causing panic and serious injuries. However, no concrete evidence confirmed this hypothesis, keeping it merely speculation. More unusual theories have also emerged. Among them is the infrasonic snow blast, a rare natural phenomenon capable of generating sound waves that cause panic, disorientation, and even extreme hallucinations. This idea could explain the disorderly escape, but not the internal injuries or the radiation. Others suggest animal attacks or even encounters with unknown beings, but none of this has been corroborated by evidence. The fact is that to this day, no theory can explain all the elements simultaneously. The torn tent, the scattered bodies, the severe injuries without external causes, the abandonment of clothing and shoes, and the presence of radiation. Each new explanation solves part of the mystery, but leaves other questions unanswered, keeping the case shrouded in mystery and fascination. Conclusion. The Dyatlov Pass remains one of the most disturbing enigmas of the 20th century. Experienced young men, prepared to face the harsh Ural winter, disappeared under inexplicable circumstances, leaving clues that defy logic and science. The combination of extreme cold, panic, mysterious injuries, and seemingly impossible phenomena created a case that has endured for decades without a definitive solution. What really happened that night? Why was the tent ripped open from the inside? Why did some bodies have injuries that appeared to be the result of forces impossible to occur naturally? Was the radiation detected on some clothing just a coincidence, or a sign of something larger and unknown? All these questions remain unanswered. The Dyatlov Pass case reminds us of how unforgiving and mysterious nature can be, and how even the most prepared can be surprised by events beyond human comprehension. It's a warning about the limits of our control over the world around us. More than a simple accident, the Dyatlov Pass has become a story of mystery, courage, and tragedy. It continues to intrigue historians, scientists, explorers, and the curious, and will likely continue to defy explanation, keeping alive the memory of those young men who dared to cross the Urals and never returned. Dyatlov Pass isn't just a place on the map. It's a reminder that the unknown still holds secrets we may never fully understand.